Hello everyone, welcome to Irish Abroad Meets. My name is Mitch. Today we're in beautiful County Galway and I'll be interviewing Damian Browne. I'm joined here with Damian Browne. For people that don't know, he's a former professional rugby player. He's a fellow Galway man, which is true, isn't it?
Yes.
And then also he's an extreme adventurer, most notably rode across the Atlantic from New York to Galway, just to name one of the mad trips. Damian, how are you?
I'm great, thanks very much.
Good, good. Where are we now? We're here in Galway.
Yeah, so this is Tara Pier. We have Kinvara like a couple of kilometers that way, and straight out there, we're kind of on the tip of Galway Bay here,
I have
or
to
the
say,
bottom of it.
it's very scenic. It's lovely, and it's a mild enough day. Even if there's a bit of a wind, I mean, for Galway, we're doing good. And come here. Obviously, you were in Australia recently. How's it been being back now? Are you settling back into
Yeah,
Ireland?
we did the whole big move with the family. We have two little ones, 4 and 2.5, so we felt it was a good time. We definitely saw the west of Ireland as where we wanted to bring them up around the culture,
Of course.
community, and people. So we're just settling in. It takes a little bit of time, find your feet, get back into routines.
Mm.
But delighted to be home, and yeah, excited about the future.
Yeah, and then when you're in Australia, did you have a good time out there? First of all, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was it was a transitionary enough time in my life, coming off the back of the row, and a huge amount of my work actually ended up back in Ireland. So I was commuting over and back 6, 7 times a year, which was
Okay.
a lot on that journey. So
Uh,
that was a big factor in us making the move.
yeah, the
So
connection was still very strong as well because you weren't distanced too far because you had to come back so often as well. I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was good. I really enjoyed coming back. I didn't enjoy leaving, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because you're leaving, the young family, and it's tough on them. Roselle, my wife, is then single parenting,
Mm,
which is particularly hard.
I'm
But at the
sure.
same time, it was great to come back, and I got to catch up with friends and family on those trips.
Yeah.
So, but now that we're here and settled, it's a lot better.
Yeah. And was there a kind of, obviously you were back and forth, so you weren't, you didn't have the months away of kind of, I haven't been in Ireland and I missed this and that. But was there a bit of a kind of a sense of a belonging or thinking about Ireland a bit more when you were away, or did you find that?
Yeah, big time. It's strange when you have something that you really desire.
Yeah.
I really wanted us to be in Ireland. The big thing I missed was the
Mm,
community spirit that we have here. And when you don't have that, it leaves a significant hole in your experience of life, and that's the thing I was craving. So getting back and kind of settling in and filling that hole, and getting the family kind of connected with the strength of that,
yeah.
because I don't think we understand what we have here compared to other countries.
Mm,
It's really special,
only when it's
so
gone.
yeah, only when you don't have it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So it's great to have you back. But obviously, look, years ago, you were a professional rugby player and you were with Connacht for quite a while, finished with Connacht as well. How do you think they're going at the moment?
Going good. Going good. Seen some positive um um performances,
Yeah,
especially most recently, with the win up in Ulster.
yeah.
I know Circuit Lancaster a little bit, and I thought that was an amazing coup by the province to
Mm,
get him on board. Um, and I know he'll be changing things on a deep level, so it takes a bit of time, and it's tough when you're in that role with the responsibility, because everything is judged off results. Like it's a results environment,
yeah.
right? So you have to be getting results, but you also have to make deep change for the long term. So it's a tough balance, but I think they seem to be doing it very well, quite well, as far as I can see. And it's obviously the new stadium and all that
Yeah,
is
it's very
amazing.
cool.
It's
Have you
cool.
been in or?
I've just passed by it. I haven't
Yeah.
measured just yet.
I was in there recently now. I think it was the Glasgow game and we won in the last couple of minutes.
Mm,
And it was actually brilliant because we were
mm,
all in the new stand and it was our first time there. So it's good to see.
mm.
Now, look, I suppose talking about your kind of your adventures and, there's a few we could name. But what I'd like to know is, let's say you rowing across the Atlantic, you running across the Sahara, things like that. Where does the desire and where does the ambition for that? Why do you want to do these things?
Um, That is a very big question, and
Sorry.
no, no, all good.
Yeah.
Um, I'm always quite thoughtful in how I try to explain it, because I think it's a big question. It's an important question, and
Yeah.
there's many avenues I can go down with it. But at the end of the day, take that back. I think it comes down to two little things, little words, big things, and they are life and death, right? So you're going to I've got this one opportunity to make the most out of this gift of life,
Yeah,
and I'm called to certain things, and it's my choice if I listen to that calling, that draw, that inner intuition, the voice within me that's calling me to something or not. And my experience has been from giving that a chance as a young man is that the rewards are extraordinary. So I'm constantly like it's not an easy thing. It's a battle, right?
yeah,
Because there'll be a lot of resistance comes up to not go towards that voice, that draw. But my thankfully at one point I did when I was quite younger, and then I built that association would have been very positive, and the rewards been extraordinary.
kept through those kind of thoughts.
Yeah, yeah, I got past them and I actually took a step towards the thing that was calling me. And then that was once I took that first step, everything was downhill from there. So it's kind of getting over that fear of going towards something that you're unsure of, and there's no kind of clear pathway.
Yeah,
And then the second thing is that, like, we're all going to cease.
yeah,
The spirit is going to leave our body at some point, and that to me is a huge motivator. Puts huge direction into my thoughts, and it puts huge clarity into what I want to do with my life. So
mm,
you can kind of sum it up in those two things, life and death. So to
yeah.
make the most out of life, and to when you get to the end, to have as little regrets as possible.
Okay. And is there an element of exploring the unknown for you, or maybe curiosity of the different things you're doing, because they're relatively unique experiences? Well, they are unique experiences, and they're definitely unique to you as well.
Mm,
Is there curiosity maybe that's like you obviously before you rode across the Atlantic, you didn't know how that was going to feel. You didn't know what was going to happen when you were
mm.
there. Is that an element of finding out how will I deal with this? Or
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think curiosity is exactly where it stems from. I've always been a curious soul,
yeah,
and always endeavored to explore whatever it is I'm curious about, and not kind of be held back in any way. That's not to say it hasn't happened, but
of
generally
course.
I find a way to explore it, um and it's an extension of that, right? So you can think of it as like stretching yourself, right? Challenging yourself. You're doing that each time. You're trying to go a little bit further. You're trying to reach into yourself a little bit more, and calling the thing that's drawing you in. For example, rowing the Atlantic or running the Marathon des Sables. That's the big stretch at that point, right? That's the thing that's going to stretch you far, and that's where the kind of curiosity element comes. Like, what's
Okay.
that going to be like? Like, what's the middle of the desert going to be like? 40 degrees, trying to run around 15 kilos on your back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I want to see. Like, I wanna find
I'm glad you're the one that's able to find that out, and it wasn't me. But okay, so let's talk about the fact that you did row across the Atlantic, and let's take it back maybe to day zero, day one. I'd love to know what your thoughts or your feelings were when you started. Obviously, you were with Fergus at the time.
out.
What was the mindset at the very start? How are you feeling?
Um, so there's always a nervous excitement, like, so what are we going out into here? So it was about 11 p.m. and we were going into the Hudson, and we hadn't rowed the Hudson at night. So I'm the captain as such.
Okay.
So I have to be on high alert about all the threats, and there's a lot of threats at that point. So although you're feeling a nervous excitement, you have to switch into that tactical analysis of what's happening around you, and you have to kind of have your head on a swivel. And there's a lot going on, like, as you can imagine, you're rowing out into this body of water, and it's coming up to midnight. You have to be worried about tides, or when are we going to hit the ebb and the flow of the
Yeah.
tide, whereabouts, and then we're going down, just navigating the stationary, the moored ships and moored tankers. Then you got to deal with the Coast Guard. So although you feel immediately when you're pulling away, and there's a relief in that as well, you finally got to this point and you're taking off. But then it's very much focus on, like, well, what's happening around me and how do I navigate that, so that we don't end up in some
Yeah.
situation we don't need to be in,
So
or
you were literally obviously I think that's a great answer. It's not one I was expecting, to be honest. I thought you were kind of going to go in, this is how I felt. I was excited, but immediately you had to think about what was around you, and you were obviously taking it not step by step, literally step by step,
moment by
and row
moment.
by
Yeah,
row. Yeah.
yeah.
And I suppose if I'd like to go like kind of along the journey with you, if you go in the few days then and yourself and Fergus are, making some progress, but after, numerous days then Fergus withdraws because of health reasons. And I
Mm.
know he has his own incredible story and things like that. How did your mindset change? Because that's a huge, you have a whole different thing then when you're going from two people to one person.
Yeah.
Same goal, but
Mm.
totally different, method of getting there now.
My I don't think my mindset changed. I had one goal, and that was to row across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And I didn't care how that happened. The picture of it didn't come into my head particularly beforehand. It was just getting that small boat from A to B. And whatever I had to do that, I was going to try and do it to the best of my ability. Now that's not to say like that whole first, so that if I take you through that first kind of 14 days, like
Yeah.
it's like, so day 1 to day 7 to day 10 probably is super super confronting to you, because you're going from an existence on solid ground that your nervous system is used to, that your body clock is used to, and that's all gone, right? You're on this tiny little boat, 6 meters in length, there's two on it. You sleep for, you work for 90 minutes on, 90 minutes off. So then you have to try and sleep in that 90-minute window. So it works out you have about, at best, about 70 minutes to try and get some sleep. And sometimes in that cabin where you're meant to sleep, where you have to have everything shut and
Mm.
airtight,
Yeah.
it's like 40 odd degrees because it has to be, and it's airtight, right? And it's the middle of North American summer. So like you have this massive confronting kind of experience on your nervous system where you're like just trying to adapt, and it takes about 10 days to adapt. And then you have the whole like, fuck, this is so hard. And so what Gussie would have experienced
Yeah.
particularly, this is so hard. We've got thousands of miles, so what have I let myself in for? So psychologically then it's very disturbing. So all that kind of played into what we ended up with on day 14, with him being medically evacuated.
Yeah.
And then my mindset was like, after, like, there was this emotional period where it was like the death of the project for both of us
Mm.
together as a unit.
Mm.
But I processed things quite quickly. And I was sitting there thinking about it as we were waiting for this tanker to come by and medically evacuate Gussie. And then I started feeling about, like, I need to get going here. I need to start working, because um I started to, my whole thought was like, okay, well, there was we were boat was moving for 24 hours a day, and we're not making a lot of ground. We're making okay, but like now it's only going to be moving for best 12, 13, 14 hours a day, whatever I can summon.
Yeah.
What are the other 10, 12 hours going to be like? We're just going to go backwards. So I was super
Demoralizing
fearful.
almost.
Yeah, but I was really fearful, like, because the North Atlantic is a different beast. I did the Southern Atlantic before, and
Mm.
even when I was sleeping, the boat was getting blown where I wanted it to go. But the North Atlantic, there's no trade winds, so then I was going, "You're going to get blown backwards and backwards and backwards." So my whole mindset around fear is you got to approach it. So anytime you sense it, you got to get into it, and you got to make the unknown known.
Yeah.
And that's what I was. So that's what I was thinking. I got to get going. I got to make. So I was sitting here dwelling on stuff that was making me fearful, and that fear is a very conniving emotion. It can, input narratives into your internal narrative that is very
Absolutely.
unhelpful. So I was like, well, you got to make the unknown known. You got to get into it and experience it, and then it's not the unknown, right? And
Yeah.
then you're doing the thing, and you're off. Like,
And how big is that cabin?
oh, it's like just a tad longer than me, so about 2.1 meters.
And okay, and you're almost two probably.
Yeah,
It
just
might
under
have been a
two.
bit more suitable for me. Maybe not the
Yeah,
rowing, but the size wise.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's the size of the cabin.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you've explained it well there, but I suppose were there things kind of not driving you on, but driving you home? What were you thinking of? Was it Ireland? Was it Galway? Was it your family? What were the values that you kind of went back to all the time?
So I have an architecture that sits around my training,
Okay.
and it's to leverage the emotion of why you're doing something, and that's about just creating a couple of pieces of imagery in your mind that you can, when you're in your lowest ebb, that you can think about, that you can visualize in your mind, and it brings a positive emotional response. So it changes your state. So a couple of those images that I had, there was one that kind of happened while we were out there, which was called the Bonfires of Arran.
Okay.
So I started having this communication with one of the ground crew,
Yeah.
and he was saying, this is, he's saying this is really taking off. Lots of people are following you. He said, particularly on the Aran Islands, and they're talking about lighting bonfires, and they want to know when you're coming, and that's still 1,000 miles away. I was like, well,
It's
they
like, give me a bit
can,
of
yeah,
time,
they
like.
can find out when I'm a mile away. Like, but then that image started to kind of germinate, and I almost saw it a bit like, Lord of the Rings, where they light the prize and the fires on
Yeah.
top of the mountains. I kind of saw it like that in my mind, and I just it summoned something in me, like, because I started thinking about, like, nobody knows in Ireland, no community knows the harshness of the Atlantic better than the people of the
Yeah.
Aran Islands. So they can connect kind of what I'm doing. Like, they get the worst of it, right? And they're seafaring, traditionally seafaring people. So I don't know. I just grew this connection with the image, imagining the people kind of, getting behind it, and even like talking about like getting the stuff for bonfires and where we going to light them, and then. So this was all in my head, and anytime I was like kind of having a shitty moment,
Yeah.
you just think about I just thought about that energy that those people were kind of going to be exhibiting and embodying, and it was just a state changer for me. And the other one was, I I I visualize so it's like I was in my father's body,
Mm.
and I visualized him watching me row into the docks, and me being like, weathered from the battle, and almost beaten but triumphant in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I was trying to do there was, what would he feel seeing me do that? And like, anytime I thought of that, like, I put myself in his body and thought about that image, I just had this huge positive emotional response. And again, it just changes your state.
That's gonna
So
help you row all the way, like, yeah.
yeah, well, it really, like, it's really for those moments where it's difficult, and you're in that mode of self-pity and
Yeah.
self-loathing, and you're down and you're demoralized. Like, there was moments of absolute despair out there. Like, I went backwards like 600 miles over the course of the whole thing.
Well,
So
that's something because the journey itself is about what is it about 3,000 nautical miles?
yeah,
But what you're saying there is you actually had to row much more than that.
yeah. So about 1,200 miles, well, 600 miles more, because I got blown back
You were going
about
back.
5 to 600 miles, we reckon. And then so I had to, yeah.
That's such a big mental kind of difficulty there. The fact that, not only you have to go forward all the time, but you're being pushed back. But just on something you said there, I think that's a lovely thing you said about the Aran Islands and that nobody knows the sea and the harshness of it more than those people. And it's so true. And also, it's something you actually touched on at the very start about the community, right?
Mm,
That's a community, and it is Galway, but those people don't actually know you. And
mm.
yet, there is a sense of community there. They're talking about it. They're trying to get the stuff together for the bonfire. I think that's very, very nice. Now, let's
Can I
say,
tell you a story on
go on.
that before we go any further? So, the first bonfire I saw, and there's well, I would deem it an iconic moment for me
Yeah,
anyway, an
definitely.
iconic image of, I have my fist up in the air, and in the background you can see this little bonfire on in the back of Inisheer, facing out to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And that was the first one I saw, and it really, like, was a moment for me, like, because here finally were the bonfires of Arran, and I could see it was kind of halfway down. If you there's kind of a pitch on the top of Inisheer, and then it slopes down to the all stone and rock, and it slopes down to the Atlantic, and it was kind of halfway down that slope. And I just started thinking, Jesus, somebody's gone out of their way. Like, there's not a house to be seen, right? So they've got all that material and brought it there, and lit it, and they could see the figure, and I could see there was a tricolor on a big
Wow.
stick, right? Um, that was October when I came in, and then about 2 months later, I was doing a show, talking about
Mm,
the experience in the Galmont, and a young fella, a man in his 20s, came up to me afterwards, and he said, "Jesus, that you wouldn't." And I talked about it in the show. I talked about this moment and what it meant to me
yeah.
and how incredible it was. And he said, the story you were telling there earlier, that was my dad who had the,"
Wow.
and he said, "And here he is." and his dad was, and they were there in the audience listening to that
Yeah.
story, and he brought the tricolor,
No
and he gave
way.
it to me. Yeah,
Wow. But I mean,
so
talk about full circle.
it was amazing. It
And
was so good.
even initially, because you're visualizing it, and it's a hypothetical bonfire at the
Mm,
start, but you're visualizing it the whole way. To see it is amazing.
yeah,
But then for them to be there with the
yeah,
tricolor, that's
it
brilliant.
was brilliant.
And
Yeah,
did you say there's an image of that?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
yeah,
get it
yeah,
to you. Yeah, yeah.
brilliant. But wow, that's fantastic. And I know those kind of, as you said, imagery. That's what was driving you on, and you did bring in your family there as well. So let's push it on then. When you come into Galway, by hook or by crook, you literally hit Galway.
Mm,
You hit Furbo.
yeah.
What happened that night?
So it was a big storm. Like, so these winds are probably 15 to 20 knots, and that was 30 to 35 knots. So
Yeah,
like they were significant. And the horsepower you have is after 111 days of rowing. Like, so it's pretty diminished even. And I even if I was in the best of physical condition, I wouldn't have had the power to navigate the bay.
yeah.
So there was a northerly wind, so blowing from the south, pushing me north. So what happened was, as I was kind of turned into the east to come into the bay after navigating the islands, this northerly wind, just hit the side of the boat. And ocean rowing boats have a big, what they call windage,
Mm,
meaning they have a surface area that the wind just catches and hits. And that's normally how it moves them. But
yeah.
here I'm getting moved, but I'm getting moved north. So I keep trying to row south, south, south. I even faced the boat to like Finora at one point, and then row for an hour, go in and check the little tiny screen in the cabin, and I can still see I'm going, getting pushed north. So it was kind of inevitable. I ended up getting kind of right up very close to the shoreline, and it was kind of holding it there for a while because the wind was a little bit less, and I had enough strength to. But then at one point, so on this side of me, I have waves, right,
Yeah.
and big waves, and when you're in shallow water and big winds, you get really steep, aggressive waves. So there's a threat of capsize from these waves. So I have to keep an eye on those. And here I have land. So my head is on a swivel, waves, land, waves, land, waves, land, row, row, waves. And I'm looking behind me, and I just see these two rocks like right behind me, maybe 8 to 10 meters away. So I tried to flick the boat. I had to flick it like 270 degrees. So you have to put one oar in the water and like roll like crazy with the other, and other one, and you bring it around. So I got it around, and I needed to punch it out into those waves I was
Yeah.
talking about, and I actually got perfectly through the first one because these are aggressive waves
I'm
now,
sure.
35
I'm
knots.
sure.
So I have to get the nose perfectly true. So I punched through the first one. I'm like, geez, I might actually get away here. And then the second one, and the nose was just showing a little bit too much of one side to the wave.
Okay.
And then the power of the wave just grabs the boat, turns it sideways, capsized me, and then I just got brushed up onto
Went.
the
Yeah.
on I could hear the oar break, and I popped back up into the capsize, popped back up, and the oar was broken. I had no more oars left, but I was nothing
That
I
was
could
it.
do anyway. I just
Yeah.
got blown up onto the
But
rocks, and
but like that's there's no need to say how difficult, how incredible the whole journey was. But that's at the kind of 95th percent or 97, 98, the end of it.
mm,
What was the biggest challenge in the middle of it or throughout it? What was kind of the moment you said, like, now this is the toughest, one of the toughest parts?
I think it's more than anything. It's a psychological.
Yeah.
Like, it's physically it's challenging, but it's not like deeply challenging. It's just a grind. You just got to get up every day. But the psychological and emotional side of it is super, super difficult. It's like the demoralization. So there was one period, right? So if you s- if you split the journey up into 100-mile blocks, on average, 100 miles would take, or sorry, 100 miles would take you about 2.5 days.
Yeah.
So you row about 40 miles a day on your own if you're rowing like 12 to 13 hours a day. It was one 100-mile block that should have taken 2.5 days. That took 13 days.
Jesus.
Took me 13 days to get from 500 nautical miles to Galway to 400 nautical miles. And that was like despair,
Yeah.
like disparament.
Just for people who don't know, it was 112 altogether. It was
Yeah,
112 days out there. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that was a real demoralizing moment.
So that's a moment where you row 12 hours a day, and inside the first two strokes, 3 4 strokes of that 12 hours, when you get up in the morning, you know that everything you do today is for nothing, because you can see on your speedometer that, even when you're rowing, you're going 1.2, 1.3 knots. That means that the minute you drop the oars, you're going to be blown backwards.
Yeah.
But you have to row for 12 hours a day.
No choice.
And then that could have happened 2 days in a row, and then I have to do it again on the third day. So summoning the energy to get up and do quality work, do 12 hours of quality work, knowing that once again it's for literally no gain in the big picture,
Yeah.
is extraordinarily difficult, and that was like that 100 mile block encapsulated the kind of the challenge of the whole thing.
Can't imagine it. Now, let's say you were obviously in the sea for 112 days. Did you have encounters with wildlife, sea creatures? How was
Yeah,
that?
yeah, amazing. So I had everything you can imagine, like sharks, whales.
Mm,
I had, I reckon, about 50 to 60 days straight of pods of dolphins.
wow.
Like it's an amazing moment when you have an encounter with wildlife out there. Even if it's as fleeting as a pod of dolphins kind of swimming around you and then they're gone, or sometimes they could hang around for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, you're going down a wave and they're surfing the wave, surfing down the wave beside you, and they're breaching and they're making noise and they're out the front of the boat and they're in and out and under the boat.
They
Like
were
it's
intrigued.
absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And was there, during those times, obviously, we've talked about how hard everything was and the moments you had. Was there times you looked around and kind of said, maybe with the dolphins, maybe when you heard the whale, but this is absolutely beautiful and this is kind of such a rare image and, like sounds that you're hearing.
Mm.
Were you thinking that? This is stunning.
At times, like it's the ocean is moody, right?
Yeah.
She has moods, you can tell, and sometimes she is calm and she is peaceful. And those days, you can actually get some decent rowing done because when it's some way kind of choppy, like the boat's pitching and tossing, and it's quite hard to get into a rhythm. It's very there's no real rhythm to your stroke. You're just kind of just gripping it and doing your best, you know. But on days like that, so you can actually get into a rhythm with your stroke and actually kind of enjoy your surroundings because
Yeah.
there's a lot less threats. You're not
Mm.
like worried about kind of a rogue wave coming, or you're not worried about getting knocked off the boat. You know, you can be a bit more comfortable, be a bit more relaxed, get into a rhythm, and actually get your head up a little bit more and
Look at what you're doing almost. Yeah.
take in the like the surroundings, like take in, and it's so peaceful. Like it's just, you won't like there's no noise. Like if there's not a puff of wind, which some days there actually wasn't, believe it
Wow.
or not. Like it's just super peaceful.
Incredible. And then last question on the road. When you came into Galway, the emotions must have been just hard to kind of even feel
Well, the emotion I felt, sadly, was failure
at the time.
because at the time when I hit the rocks and so I have a deep connection with my boat,
Yeah.
Cushla, like she carried me through like an incredible challenge.
Fantastic name as well, Cushman McCree.
Cushla McCree, yeah. Chosen by we put it out to the public and it was we were given a bunch of names back and we just
Yeah.
loved that one and the story behind it. So um so yeah, so I just felt when I was kind of crawling away from her on the rocks that night. Firstly, this isn't how I want. This is now never. I didn't see it ending as
Yeah.
it, like on the rocks in Furbo. And secondly, I just thought she was going to be chewed up and just destroyed overnight in in those winds and waves on the rocks. And thankfully, she wasn't. Somehow, she survived that 12 hours of high and low tide. But so that was immediately, and then it just took conversations with a few people close to me, like
Of course.
Dara, who managed the whole campaign, and I was like, "This is what I'm feeling," like and they're like, "Hey, fucking Atlantic, you've just rode
Yeah.
the Atlantic," and it just took a little bit of that to see it from a different perspective, I suppose, because I was so singularly focused all the time on this one outcome, which was rowing into the docks
Yeah.
and what I was going to do, whatever it took, like, and then that be taken away, I just felt something that wasn't the truth, and then it just, the different perspectives were shared with me, and thankfully, and then I started to see it much better. And when I didn't want to go into the docks the next day,
Really.
so I ended up back at my parents' house and people were ringing me and back there saying, "Is this? We're still doing this?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't really like,
Yeah. But it was such
it's
an
crazy."
incredible, it was an incredible image, but moment. I remember it happening and the amount of media, the amount of people that were there.
Mm.
It was beautiful. If that didn't happen and the achievement and the incredible thing that you did, it would have been just such a travesty, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
No, I'm so glad now when I look back and I catch, a glimpse of that moment when they're coming in on the rib or holding the flare, like it really makes me feel something. And I see the images of the people there and the kids and the
Yeah,
schools and and there was like whatever there was, loads of people. So I was so glad I did it. But it's
brilliant.
funny how you kind of get you kind of get shrouded in
Yeah.
whatever emotion you're feeling, and you don't like, oh no, I'll just continue on with life here.
100%, but also understandable given the journey you had been through, and your emotions are going to be so high. Now, let's say take it away from that for a moment. Last year you did the Marathon des Sables. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now I've no, Spanish or anything like that.
Close enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You ran through. What is it? First of all, tell us.
It's an ultra marathon, a 6 day ultra marathon through the Sahara Desert, self supported.
Okay.
So um, you carry everything on your back to survive the experience for your from day one to the end. So you have all your food for that period, you have all your bedding, cooking utensils. The only thing you're given each day is water
Okay.
and a tent. You sleep in a Berber tent, which is a local indigenous tribe of the Sahara in
Yeah.
that period, in
And
that
is this in Morocco?
Morocco, yeah, yeah. Right in the east of Morocco near Algeria.
Okay. So a different amount of kilometers every day, but you're talking some days 30, 40, some days 70, 80.
Exactly, yeah. So that's bang on. I think first few days is between 30 and 42. They don't go quite to a marathon. And then on day four, they do basically double marathon. This year, actually, we have a team going out. I coach people to do it every year. And
Yep.
there's the day four is always the long day. It's 100 kilometers
Wow.
because it's their 40th anniversary. And
More pain, so
yeah,
more
yeah,
torture.
yeah. And then they do a marathon 42 on day five. So there's a bit of structure in it, but it's never the same route and it's never the same distances.
And it's just like the sea, maybe not as much, but I'm sure it's absolutely unforgiving, the Sahara. Now, let's say, did you go with a group, or what is the Iron Mind Institute? Is that what the group that you went with, or is that, what is it?
That's my business.
Okay.
We coach people to do extraordinary things. So we had a group of 16, including myself last year. I'm not doing it this year, but last year I did it with the group. And so we coached them over 8 months,
Yep.
build them up, physically, mentally. We focus a lot on the mental, emotional side of performance. And technically, all the bits and pieces. Imagine preparing for something like that. You have to
Well, I
be
can't, thank God, but
okay.
yes,
Well,
no,
yes,
yeah,
yes, we
I
can
don't
chat
know.
about it later.
One, I'm from a parish called Mullia. There's one Mullia man who's done it
Hey,
already, but
that's right.
shout
Yeah.
out David Head. But anyway, go on, continue.
um, yeah. So yeah, we prepare them technically, like in all the bits and pieces, how to manage your body, basically,
Yep,
particularly your feet. That's a big thing. Like when you're there, um, they have a lot of what they call DNFs, do not
yep,
finishes,
yep.
every morning, and you'll just see them, and it's mostly because of their feet. Their feet are destroyed from blisters, and like the skin is gone. So we show people how to manage their feet and we build them up for this experience. And thankfully we got 100% last year, and
Brilliant.
the lads are flying out.
Congratulations.
This year's team is flying out tomorrow, believe
Oh,
it or not. Yeah.
best of luck
So
for all
yeah,
the team.
best of luck, lads. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've had like they're I say this to them all the time, like they could not be better prepared. They won't find anyone better prepared there. So hopefully it goes well. I'm excited to see how they go. Yeah, so we do that. We put a program together every year and prepare people for the MDS.
Okay, and that's the Iron Mind
Iron Mind
Institute.
Institute, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And then, do you want to talk a little bit about the €1 million?
Lap,
Yeah,
yeah.
the €1 million lap.
So that was scheduled to happen this summer, and actually the Marathon des Sables was kind of a midpoint in that training program for me, like this time
Yeah,
last year, and it was meant to be starting kind of in June, July this year, but I've had to postpone it because I have an Achilles tendon issue that is just very stubborn
yeah.
and very frustrating. For it won't kind of leave me. And I've had it since the MDS last year, believe it or not. So it's kind of going on for about a year
Okay.
now.
Well,
So
obviously, with the amount of running, with that type of marathon, obviously at some point the body has to take a toll, and it's
yeah,
incredible all the things you have done. But
yeah, like I mean, there's a few things comes into my head when I'm thinking about this. Maybe I love to challenge myself,
yeah,
and
of
I
course,
saw the €1 million lap as this, like it would just be brutal physically for me. Like
yeah.
I've had a 15-year rugby career, and I've done lots since that. I'm always pushing my body, and I was like, can I build my body to a point that it can withstand running 3,000 kilometers around Ireland? And I mean, I'm getting answers. But I'm not
Early
giving up
answers.
on it. I'm not giving
Yeah,
up
of
for sure.
course.
Yeah, no, it's just a bump in the road. And there's one thing for sure, at some point, like hopefully it's next year, but at some point I'll attempt that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And sorry, just exactly what it is. It's 3,000 kilometers,
Roughly, yeah,
roughly.
3,000 kilometers, like roughly 71 marathons around the coast of Ireland. And the idea would be like that. you run maybe 6 days a week, maybe seven. I don't know. It'll be depend, and then you get people to join you every day, and you try and raise €1 million for
Wow.
charity. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I have absolutely no doubts that you'll get to it eventually, and I hope that the body heals up. Congratulations on everything you've done. I think that's all for me. Thanks very much for speaking to me
Thanks a
this
lot, Ronan.
morning,
Yeah,
and
lovely.
thanks for bringing me here to this lovely pier.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
But best luck with everything. Thank
thanks
you.
very much. That's great.
Great.
Cheers.